Okay. Okay. Everybody doing? There's some weird dimension problems, but I checked the settings and it seems as if the board is still visible, and uh the attributes seem a little bit shrunken. I'll try and adjust that later, but I'm thinking good enough for now. I was also having some issues with a white screen. It seems like Streamlabs doesn't save settings accurately all the time. I don't know what it is. I was trying to fix the white screen and it just fixed itself. I've watched a video which says something about go to Zoom and that GPIs and all this other stuff. I just deleted Zoom, still had the white screen. I don't know, maybe it's some bug stuff. I'm always suspicious about companies changing and updating their software to be intentionally incompatible with other companies that they're competing with at the expense of the consumer. I hope that's not what's happening, but it seems if I'm doing the same thing every time and I get the same results 8 times, and then time 9 and time 10 I don't do anything different, other than the updates that happen outside of my control, that there's software issues. So I don't know, but the game that I want to show you is between Emory, Tate, Lenoid, Yudasin, US Masters, Chicago, 1997. It's a Sicilian. It's very aggressive and interesting. Hopefully you can take something from this and take it back to your lab and look at it and improve your own chess game with it. Or maybe you can just look at it and then just enjoy it for what it is. Um, I am no specialist in critiquing GM games or IM games. I just see things, I like them, and I like to show people the games that I find, and hopefully they find it as interesting as I do. This game I really found um interesting, but also not fully able to be able to explain, but I just intuitively found some aspects of it very interesting. I like the rook luft, of course. For those of you who see the thumbnail on YouTube, you will see that it's reference to the rook luft that Emory Tate used in this game. So let's start with the first move here is e4, and then we have c5, knight to f3, d6, d4, d takes d, knight takes d4, knight to f6, protect the pawn with knight to c3, a6, bishop to c4. So we're in a Sicilian. This was Bobby Fischer's favorite reply to the Najdorf, and it suits Tate's ferocious style. And so here we have e6, bishop to b3, knight b2, d7. And then there's queen to e2, knight to c5, and g4. Getting ready to remove the f6 knight, threatening to push g5 at some point. So we have b5. So black declines the offer to grab the pawn by this move e5 here. So if he was to play e5, then we would have a knight to f5, where this knight would be able to go here with the protection of these two pawns. So he doesn't want to start, he doesn't want to start that. So he just declines to play the e5 move. And we have g5. knight f to d7, and bishop to d5. So here we have an interesting point in the game, right? We have a sacrifice of the bishop here. But I think so the bishop, the sacrifice is definitely being declined. Um so and if you look at the position here, if he takes, I'm pretty sure he wants to avoid the tempo loss between the pawn on d4, capturing back with the check to the king. Of course it could be blocked, but he has other things in mind. He doesn't go for that. He wants to play something different. So bishop captures, knight captures, and we have pawn to a5, right? So for those of you who may be interested in seeing, so what would happen if we have this e takes d5 capture, right? So let's presume that let's just presume in for now that, let's just say black captures the bishop, right? So I have to go into another mode to do this because this is a game I'm presenting to you from a study. So give me 1 second, and so we'll look at this from the engine's perspective, and so if he would have captured here, right? He takes d5, knight c6 check, possibly queen goes to b6, and we have a check here, e5, right? And these lines get kind of muddy, and so he really is not Yudasin doesn't want to go down this path. So this is why, I mean, for those of you who are just wondering, I didn't want to really go into that because it seems kind of clear. I'll just show you here that sorry about that, chose to bring his bishop to d7 for those reasons of opening the e file. He doesn't want to open e. Knight takes b7, and we have here a4, b takes a4, and rook takes a4. This is the beginning of the rook left that I mentioned in the game. That I kind of like this idea of power of a rook coming on the a file and then sweeping over, as you'll see in this game, to the king side. Knight to c5, rook goes back to a3, and we have queen to b6. So black here stands only slightly worse for right now. And well, I'll say, let's go back. So why does black stand slightly worse? Well, just because you have the bishop here and the king is in the center, and castling to this side is kind of not in the spirit of what black is intending to do. In best interest, to put the king over here on half and files. No, and so that's just slightly, like, he could develop the bishop and castle, and so it's not as bad, right? And we have kingside castling. We're at move 16. Bishop to e7, king to h1, kingside castle b4. So with this move, right, white starts the onslaught. And pay attention to what happens here, because the rook is going to end up in a whole nother location in this game. And it's amazing that this was just something that the foresight is just great. So now the knight comes to f5, pawn takes f5, knight to e5, bishop on e7, and the queen on b6. Queen goes back to d8, Pawn captures f5. Rook to e. And here black gambles that he can survive white's kingside attack because he's giving his king room to move, right? You know, in case white is going to come to the king side, everything is aiming at the king side, right? Everything is aiming at the king side, so we know where he's going. And there we go, queen to h5, knight to b6, and that's the rook love. You see this rook? This is why I'm showing you this game. I mean, this move just, like, I fell in love with the move and then the game because it's just amazing to me. Okay, now knight to f8, we have f6. White is knocking on the walls of the black king side structure with this move. And you see here, he doesn't even care about the d4 knight because this right here exposes the black king to its dangerous position that it will find itself in the rest of the game. And the king goes back to g8, and we have, excuse me, kind of quick. King goes back to g8. We have g6, and he tries to block the influence of this bishop, right? Trying to block. So why can't he just go here, right, and come here and just try and mate, right? Well, of course, this knight is gonna have a say in that because the knight can go to d6 and just protect this square, right? So it's not an immediate disaster for black on the move, but it is an immediate disaster. Bishop to g6, pawn takes check. You see, remember when the rook first slid over here, there were 3 pawns here, and now, right, this is a fork to the king and the rook. King is in check, king moves, and the other rook. Just look look at this. The other rook seals the king off into the corner and threatening. It seems to happen out of nowhere, but believe me, it came from somewhere. And of course, I had to give up a piece. There was no way to stop this rook from down. You move the knight, you lose your queen because the rook comes to g8, and well, you can say goodnight to that piece. Bishop takes, rook goes back. Knight takes. But wait a minute, why doesn't he take the queen back? I mean, that was probably an automatic response. Take the queen back, right? But you would lose your rook and your knight because he already has your queen. So he's lost, but he's trying to lose and queen to h6, knight to knight to e4, queen to h4, knight to f6, to g3. Again, we have pressure here, and well, if this knight moves, we already know what that is. So this is basically tied to g8. And we have knight f7 to g5, threatening mate 7. And with that, friend Mr. Yudasin done. There's not much he can do. You block here, just get captured. Same thing. Great game. Great. Very great game. With that, you have my sincere departure. Hopefully you can find something from this that you can use and study in your lab and grow. May your chess be the best. Peace. Going on, South African wolf? Hey, hey, hey. Later, guys.